Today on the Strategy Shift podcast, we're joined by Michael Tanenhaus. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Good job.
Outstanding. President, CEO, and head Maven at MavenSpace. I like that. He tied the Maven with MavenSpace. MavenSpire, excuse me, not space. Michael's been innovating in tech since founding his first company at 13. Dude, that's impressive. And now helps businesses harness technology to drive real results. With decades of experience across major industries, he's an expert at turning bold ideas into strategic execution. Let's jump in. Okay, before we get going, so what was your first business at 13?
Like many people, I figured out that my new formed PC gaming habit was extremely expensive, and so the best thing to do was to custom build computers and sell them to people trying to figure out this computer thing. And when I realized they would pay, like I started to then realize over the course of years that they pay a lot more than you think. So at the time, it wasn't unusual for a computer to be like $3,000 in retail. And it took me a while to get out of the 1,000 into the 2,000. I really learned the like capitalist system at 13 when I just would name a number and people would be like, okay. And then I name a higher number and then they'd be like, okay. Like that's how I figured it out. But
So what about tech, Michael? Like, how did you choose that? Have you always been interested in that at a very early age, or did it just sort of fall on your lap and then made a full-fledged career of it?
um so kudos to parents, right? So my father was in the defense sector, 168 patent kind of guy,
Hmm.
and my mom was a school teacher. And so Um, my father used to come home and put like chips on the table and be like, I just designed this, or this is the newest thing from Intel that you won't see for 2 years, and like that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
And so it definitely led into custom building computers because,
Hmm.
truthfully, if you have the really cool chips that no one else has, you take the ones in your computer out and put the really cool ones in, and like, you start building your own stuff. Again, if you've ever watched a gamer talk about their like gaming rig with their highly lighted, liquid cooled chassis today, it's the same sort of habit where they go to like Micro Center and just hang out waiting for like a sale or fries if you're in California. But turning it into a business was the farthest thing from my mind. It really came to me when my parents were like, no, I'm not paying for that. And if you really, really want something and they're not going to pay for it, then you have to figure that
Figure
out,
out a way,
right?
especially at
Yeah.
13. You need those video games. That's extremely important.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, it was brand new. I mean, it's the crazy part, right? Like back then, it was sort of a brand new industry getting started. So I won't say the games compare at all to what they are today, but they definitely created. And I guess gaming is an underpinning of my life. I actually met my wife on an internet game, right?
Really?
So yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. True story. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, technology just in general, and then let's whittle this down into to MavenSpire itself, right? In today's world, like it's virtually impossible to operate like personally or professionally without some form of technology. It just doesn't exist, right? So like, how do you sort of position yourself, Michael, in going like, listen, tech is really important, and MavenSpire stands for this. What are you really, really concentrated right now on the tech space, and how are you solving some type of real problem in the community of business through the company that you have today?
yeah, so great question. I mean, ultimately it comes back to why, right? The question of why.
Hmm.
A lot of businesses, particularly with crazes, like right now we're in the AI craze before we were in the cloud craze. Like they don't question why they would need that. They just don't want to be left behind. And
Hmm.
so we try to like push the FOMO to the side. And let's get back to the question of why. Why are we having this conversation? Why do we want to talk about this? What are you trying to do? What is your business plan? And I used to say all the time until people told me to stop that I really don't care about your pain. I want to see your plan,
Hmm.
because so often we'll see companies, particularly the small ones, get caught up on the thing that's hurting them and realize later that all that effort had nothing to do with where they were trying to get to. It just became the distraction. And so if you're trying to grow your sales force and your CRM automation isn't working right, well, those could be relatively related. It could be, there a long time ago, MavenSpire solved a problem for a relatively large company where they wanted to do 40% sales growth in a year, and they
Mm,
had an issue where the time to enter an order, like when they hit enter, was a minute and a half before it would save in, and there was
mm,
physically not enough time in the day to enter the new order. Like, so they got 40% more orders, but they couldn't enter them. Right? That actually turned out to be a 15-minute fix, which was amazing, right? That never happens, by the way. But that it was a 15-minute fix means it's going to be like a story forever, where we got it from a minute and a half down to about 10 seconds. So then they could do it, they hit their goal, life is good, right? But sometimes you just get distracted on where are we supposed to be focusing our effort, and what is this supposed to do for me? And so if you get back to the why. So when we talk about AI right now, very distracting topic, right?
mm.
There's a lot of people who are just like, I don't know what it will do for me, but I know I must have it. A lot of AI actually, ironically, has been it's something called RPA. Think of it as automation, right? So there are things that require artificial intelligence, and there are things that just make um, grunt work tasks automated,
Mm,
right? They're not necessarily related.
mhm.
Um, but the craze about AI has enabled people who refuse to think about automating to suddenly say, gosh, that's taking like 2 hours of someone's time a day, or like, can't we automate that? And whether or not it's AI is irrelevant. What is the matter, especially in small business? If you can do things faster, smoother, less
Become more
frustrating,
efficient,
less
right? The
people.
goal is to become more efficient.
Uh, Not always, truthfully.
No.
Sometimes, like a good example that we've had recently is somebody was manually assembling like call lists for marketing and sales. Like,
Mm,
I mean manual, I mean like they were like literally manually assembling them into a spreadsheet, showing them how they could ask a question and it would just pull the records in for them, and there they go.
mm.
Like, that is the difference between sales success this week and not. Like, anybody who's done calling, and everybody has had to do it. Like, nobody likes doing that stuff, right? But having a good list that's accurate and actually on point means the experience is way better than if you're just guessing about it. And that's one tiny little example in a field of so many. The Especially with the rise of things like Notebook LM recently, where you can ask it questions like, in in any of my proposal documents, have I ever had this? And it will tell you. Like, that has been saving people like lots of time.
Yeah.
But you
I
have to have that problem.
Yeah, I love the topic that you brought up too, Michael, with this, right? Like, just because you can do something, even if it's doing something faster or more efficient, doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean? Really looking back and going like, is this a problem that we actually need to solve, and how do we solve that in a way that makes perfectly good sense? I work with a lot of my clients, and I know you do as well, is that in the end, it's got to be simple and easy. It's got to be something that really makes sense and drives the business forward. It's got to make good business sense. So a lot of like categories that I'm sure you're running into, and I'd like to hear like one or two examples or some feedback on it, is going, we got this whole thing of AI. And there's a craze right now of, if I've got this power, let's figure out how to harness it and do everything we possibly can. But how do you take the steps in when you talk to somebody, whether it's a small business or much larger, right? How do you go through the steps on going, yeah, but that's really not important. This is where we can help you out with AI and what we should spend our time and energy on.
And so ultimately, AI is a wrench. It's just a tool. And when MavenSpire approaches talking to an organization about building any kind of strategy, we actually, the first rule of the conversation is, we are not going to talk about technology. Like, I don't want
Mm,
to hear anything about technology. Yes, I know we're a tech company, but I don't want to talk about technology at all. What I want to talk about is your business and what you're trying to do and where your plans are. And I want to hear from the people that are doing it, as well as management, about what that experience is like. And so you back into the tools. You don't start with the tools, right? You you look at what is the barrier? What is the plan? Where do they not know how to do it? That's a favorite of ours. Like getting someone to tell you about it's a vulnerability moment for a lot of organizations, so they don't love it. But if you ask them in their 5 and 10 year plan, what would it look like? What is, and they have an answer of what they want it to be, but they have
Mm.
no idea how to cross the chasm to get there. Like that's a very vulnerable spot for them because they don't like admitting that
So
they
you're
have
talking about having them define what their current state is and then
yeah,
having articulate your future state. What's the strategy? Where do you want to go?
yeah, we're unfortunately some sci-fi geeks over here. So there was a movie called Stargate. It's part of a franchise a long time ago, but in the movie talks about how in three-dimensional space it takes 6 points to define a destination,
Mhm.
and then a source point to know where you're starting from. We're true believers in that, actually. Those 6 points are usually those six core things that need to get accomplished for people to be able to understand how to get there. And then
Mm.
knowing where you start from kind of helps everyone to understand the chasm in between. And from there, you can start mapping in how you're going to do it. Now, what's cool in my business is because we're, consultants and advisors first, that just happen to be great with technology. When we need things that are not part of technology, not part of us, we are truly a believer in connected communities. The reason we have such great relationships with experts, like yourselves in different fields, we call them the super friends, is because like sometimes it's not about the tech, sometimes it's about the people.
Mm.
And we've had to pull in and I didn't even know industrial psychologists were in a position until I needed one the first time and realized that to help people through change, sometimes you have to get a psychologist in there to like figure out
You
what's
need to
going on.
change someone who's certified in change management.
Yeah, someone who can actually help people like understand the difference. Now, what's funny about that is, cybersecurity is kind of a big deal. And there are a lot of stats out there. I won't bore you with a bunch of them, but bottom line is if people are using multi-factor authentication and they take some kind of security training every 62 days, it reduces your risk of having a big issue that's going to cost you a lot of money, something like 82%.
Wow.
Really.
Yeah, but unfortunately, only 30% of business do this.
Eesh.
So it's like people come up with reasons why it's inconvenient to have the multi-factor, or they don't want to go to the training because it's boring or whatever, even if it's only 10 minutes, right? And so those are both psychology problems, not technology tool problems. How do I figure out how to make it okay to either take that extra minute for the multi-factor or make that 10 minutes every 60 some days to make sure that they are aware of what the current cool new thing is, like
Mm.
so that they're aware of it and they can avoid it. Like, those are change management problems, not technology problems. The technology exists. Thank God the cyber training people have got a clue now and are going for fast and funny and not like, oh my God, like 2 hours of training.
That's right.
That's been solved. Right now, it's just a matter of getting people to engage.
So
Yeah.
now it's a mindset shift from the organizations that say, "Hey, we gotta embrace this. This is what needs to happen."
Which is true of any of the big revolutions, whether you're talking about AI or cloud or anything. Like, I mean, it's so funny, think about the fact that in what 1993, I was working with my first web browser, and you couldn't do much. Like its whole point was to make text like a little more visual, so you
Mhm.
could like index it and get to it faster, right? And from there to now, like I think we all agree that the economy is now on them, right? Like technology is like required at this point in every vertical, in every size business. You really couldn't do it without, right? But back then, nobody was thinking that. Like the amount of cultural change to have the frenzy around Prime Day be bigger than Black Friday is is a huge shift, and it's a people shift, not a technology shift.
Yeah. And to no surprise, but still is a wow factor of how quickly that happens, right? I mean, just like we're talking about like in just part of our lifetime. Look how far we've come with this stuff, and I can't even begin to imagine what's going to happen in the future for us as well. So let me get back to like our community, the small business owner. Let's talk about AI and the small business. Michael, where do we start with this type of stuff, right? Like, because it can become overwhelming for the small business space in thinking about it. We don't want to be left behind, but there is a reasonable budget that we have to work with, as well as time commitments and everything else. Where do we start asking the right questions as a small business owner of going, how does this or should it apply to me today?
And more specifically, as we're all business owners, for me as a small business owner, I'm a marketing guy, right? So I'm in the stage of learning is I don't even know what I don't know. So where do I start?
Yeah, so normally, if we're, obviously if we're sitting down and having like a formal engagement on it, we'll start with your business and what you're trying to do. If someone's asking me off the cuff, like, how do I how do I download AI, right? Like when people used to ask me how you could download the internet, how do I download AI? I always tell them, okay, what is your mission critical application for your business?
Yes.
Hmm.
In other
They
words,
usually have some
what are you
people have
using?
five. Hmm?
In other words,
No,
what are you using it for?
no. Let's just start with the mission critical applications in your business. If you're a marketing firm, it's probably a platform. If you're a sales firm, it could be the CRM, it could be the
Ah,
front
got
end,
it.
the
Okay.
back end. It's like, what are those critical pieces right now
Hmm.
that you have? And then I ask them what they hate about it. Like, what do you hate about that system? Now,
Hmm.
sometimes people will say, "Oh, I don't hate it," but like, here's the things I wish.
Hmm.
Sometimes people have like a list of like they pull out of like 400 things they hate about their system. Truthfully, if you're the second one, we should talk about a new system because you really
Yeah, if you
shouldn't have
hate that
any
many
hate.
things, probably
Yeah,
time for a new
if
system.
you have hate for your systems, we should change your system, right? But keep in mind that AI exists in multiple different forms, right? It's out there. So if you're using a mission critical system where AI is getting integrated into it, the question is for that manufacturer and how they did it, does that address some of the stuff that is frustrating for you?
Hmm.
If the answer is yes, then your simple lowest hanging fruit AI adoption is about getting that set up,
Yeah.
right? There are, and it takes all shapes, right? From retail systems where it's a chat interface instead of looking up SKUs anymore to, marketing systems that auto select lists to, sales systems that read your email and automatically enter deals and keep them up to date for you. Like, like all of that stuff is in when you're talking about AI. So even doing pick lists and shipping for you, all in. So you start with the critical system and see what that manufacturer has pulled together. Some do it better than others. Some people have third parties do it and it's like a bolt-on. Um,
Hmm.
but if you start from that thing that's the center of your world, it's a little more approachable than if you start from like complete blank space.
Yep.
So having exhausted that path, the next logical question is what is the thing that is hardest for you to do in your business outside of this task? And usually people have like the manual, like I'm using a spreadsheet for thing. Sometimes that is not AI, it's automation. Like they're manually doing something they should never be doing manually, but right. But there's usually something there that expands beyond the boundaries of that core application that they're just doing. Sometimes it's crazy stuff. I met an owner that was doing like scheduling of employees, but they had like a spreadsheet they were doing it with where they were like trying to figure out based on all the emails they received, like when people were off and they would like go through it and spend all their time. That's the kind of thing that you can literally hand to multiple different chatbots these days, and it will do it in 5 minutes. Like you don't have to be
Yeah.
doing that stuff, right? Like, and so that's a big win. Like when you step out to like that kind of thing. And then finally, and this is the hardest one. Um, what do you do? What do you do when you need to build an AI? Like if people have told you in your business the critical thing is to build an AI, keeping in mind that it can mean any of the other things when somebody says that. Like that's the one where, normally there are giant price figures on it. There's been a lot of change in that even over the last, I don't know, 10 weeks, where there is now such a thing called a desktop AI engine, where, I mean, truthfully, it kind of looks like a Mac Mini, but
Hmm.
you can have a supercomputer, like an AI supercomputer, for roughly $6,000 that sits on your desk. If you need that, if you have a business, where you're grinding a lot and you need to do something special that is not part of your core app and you know exactly what it is,
Mhm.
it's not hard to get there. People in the small business space have been having a really hard time with how to afford it. And so there's been some big changes in hardware, like just very recently. And NVIDIA led the charge on it and everybody followed suit to kind of bring that down so that there's like a starting point um, that you can invest in. And then ideally, the thing is making you money. So if it is and you need to scale it out after that, then that's the money that will pay for the big thing. But you don't have to jump straight to 6-digit platform numbers anymore. You actually
Yeah.
have a way to like do it before you have to scale it.
For the small business community, I mean, in short order, like, will it be possible to operate without AI over the next couple years, or do you have to dive in some which way and figure this thing out?
So so that's a great question as well, and it falls into the oracle space of crystal balling. So there are some industries where you just can't be left behind,
Yeah.
right? Like one of the big ones in my world is the managed service provider world. The way that people take care of IT will radically shift over the next 2 years. So if
Mm,
you're somebody who's not addressing that or thinking about that at all, that can be really bad news in two
mm,
years, right? There, there are lots of businesses that are all about people interaction.
mm,
You just have to really think about what is the bulk of work to do that.
mm,
So if you're in a business where the bulk of the work is talking to people, then maybe you're a little isolated from it. If you're in a place where it's less talking about people, more doing some like calculation behind, like your industry is shifting. So
mm.
you can either get on the train or be left behind. It's unfortunately, sadly, that simple. And you know, here's an interesting example for you. I call it interesting. So this October, there's this really big uh, PC refresh that's going to happen, and the reason is anybody running Windows 10 won't be able to get security updates anymore because
Mhm.
Microsoft eventually stops making them for really old operating systems, right?
Mm.
And so people don't believe that, like so they wait, right? But at the
Well, they don't
same
believe that
time,
the system's gonna end, the support's gonna end.
right, it will though. They did it for Windows 8 and they were absolutely serious, and they're absolutely serious about Windows 10 too. The interesting thing about it for me is that there's another change in PCs happening at the same time, which is the rise of the AI PC, which basically means there's yet another chip built into the computer that is specifically there so that AI workloads can run on your computer without slowing it down. Why is that important today? It's not. There's very few things that use that. But if the computer costs exactly the same as its counterpart, and in a year it's going to be entirely different, and you don't invest in this and you only refresh your computers every 3 years, you're going to have a problem in like a year because the way the world is moving, they are dividing the way AIs work up. So some of it runs on your computer and some of it runs in the cloud
Mhm.
because frankly, we have like power grid problems for the cloud. So they figured out a solution. Let's divide the load. And if you're not capable of dividing, like you just won't be able to do some stuff, right? It won't work. Um, so it's kind of an interesting like, well, but it's new and different, and I have to think about it versus the easy button of like refreshing a computer and the like, and it's the small business and the medium is everybody is like, but there's that extra thing in there. Will it be secure? Will I like we all have to figure this stuff out. But we know that if we don't do it now, like in a 3-year cycle, like somewhere in the middle, you're going to feel like you got left behind, and you're going to either do it early and refresh again, or you're, you know, you're going to be watching other people pass you in their
Well,
ability to get stuff done, which is, I don't know if you've seen, and I won't do it here, but if you're at all interested, I have a couple of demos that people have sent me from some of our customer organizations where they have built out fully AI video salespeople
wow.
already,
Yeah, I would like to see
right?
that. Please send
And
that
they're
over.
like selling like expensive watches and stuff, and
Hmm.
they're not perfect yet. And no one's saying anything is perfect yet. But keep in mind, like we're saying, a year from now, stuff is going to be like getting there, right? If you watch how fast the pace of acceleration on this is, it's really fast, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of money going in to making it perfect.
Wow. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. We're running out of time. Tom, you got to wrap us up. Let's get a really good question, some takeaways for our small business owners, and wrap up another great episode.
Let's do it. Well, Michael, let's bring this home. You've brought up a lot of topics, and I think one that the general topic is really on everybody's mind right now, and that is AI in general, right? Because our community is small business owners, I always like to wrap up our sessions with one similar question, and that is, we had a great discussion today about AI, but if you were to leave our community with just one thing as a takeaway, what would it be today?
So the beginning of looking at anything like AI starts with the systems you use to run your business today, your business plan, where you want to get to, and your data. AIs do nothing without data. So being able to get access to the data, understanding what applications and what those vendors might be doing with AI, like is going to help you understand what is going to drop in your lap for free and what you might have to do yourself. So getting your head around that, those 3 areas, is a good place to start.
That's perfect. And if anybody in our community wants to get a hold of you, Michael, to have a discussion about AI, how do we do that?
Well, of course, I have an email address, but spelling that on video can be a bit tough. But for a phone number, we're 443-433-0106.
Excellent. Well, Michael, it was great having you on today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was fantastic.
I really hope that a lot of our guests learn a little bit about AI and certainly reach out to you if they need any help in that category. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for
All
being
right.
on, Michael.
Yeah.